Hello and welcome to Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1 in Urbana Public Television Studios for today. It is looking like WPGU Studio might be up and running when we return and continue to do shows in January, this being our last show of the semester, because today, Monday, December 9th, and we have reading day on Thursday, and just a lot of final stuff coming up that really makes, as college students, life gets pretty hectic at this point, and you don't really have a lot of free time or anything to sort of pick things out. So out of respect for all of the people that put effort into this show, we're just going to give everybody the rest of the time off to do well on finals, and then enjoy their winter break as everybody goes home and gets some much needed time off. And then we will resume doing shows. It's looking right now like January 27th, 2020. Because that first week of school, I like to let everybody sort of figure out their schedule and where they got to be at certain times and whatnot, and then we'll have plenty to talk about on the 27th because Illinois plays against, I thought it was Northwestern on the 25th, but it's looking like that's wrong. I don't know. They got a game against Minnesota that week. It'll be firmly in the Big Ten season at that point, so Illinois basketball will have a lot to talk about. There'll be plenty that happens in the off season too. So, students off season. But that's sort of an update on where we're at right now. Urbana Public Television has been nice enough to let us use the studio since the flood of our studio back near the middle of the semester. If you remember that cold, rainy game in Purdue, well, all that weather came through here as well and really did a number on our studio. So we've been here, and we've been thankful for the opportunity to be here, and we're looking to see, hopefully we can get back in the studio so we can get live on air and just sort of minimizes the steps we got to take. But plenty of stuff for us to get to, with it being a Monday, Wednesday cruise, very last show of, 2019, of this whole decade. Sad that Alex couldn't make it, but like I said, it's the whole reason that we were getting rid of shows after, today and tomorrow, is because it gets to the point that you just can't manage your schedule. You just need to put every effort into, making the grade and getting things done that need to get done. But with it being our last show, we're going to do we'll discuss what's going on now. We'll discuss what's been going on for the past decade, and then we'll look forward to the additional decade. So there's plenty of stuff for us to get to, so we're not really going to have a lot of time to touch on of anything other than a few things nationally, but I wanted to make sure to say some topical things along the lines of college football playoff. We know exactly what it's going to be. It is going to be LSU versus Oklahoma that's the Fiesta Bowl, and then it is going to be Ohio State and Clemson in the Peach Bowl. Any surprises? Surprised that LSU jumped one?
No.
Yeah.
They should have been one the entire time.
I agreed with the thought that Ohio State was a more complete team, but then when LSU drums Georgia like that, and if you put any value in where the college football playoff rankings had them for, then that's a really, really, really impressive win. And they show that stat of Ohio State and them having more wins against the AP top 10 and all the stuff that went into it. But LSU, they look dominant. They've got probably the Heisman front runner and everything they've got going for them. So it makes sense that they're the one seed. Honestly, really excited for both those two matchups too, because those are two high-profile offenses in the 1-4. And then I think people are sleeping on Clemson this year just because they didn't play anyone when they returned a lot of what won the national championship last year. And Trevor Lawrence is really starting to pan out. Baseball, Jake, Steven Strasburg, seven years, 230.
245.
245. That's my bad. I had the numbers wrong.
That's a lot of money, which means Cole's going to get 9 and 300.
You think?
Yes.
You think it goes?
Because we didn't think Strasburg was going to break Price's 7 and 210.
Yeah.
So, Cole's going to get 8 or 9 and 300.
Yeah, and that's Scott Boras too. So
yeah,
he fights for every penny.
Going to be crazy.
Looking like the Angels and the Yankees. One of the two. You're hoping for the Angels?
Hopefully the Angels.
You're hoping for the Angels, I know.
Yeah.
But all signs point to one of those two teams as the front runners.
Yes. Cubs are going to trade Chris Bryant.
I hope they don't. I really hope they don't. I'm as you see on Twitter, Austin Berkland is a big KB fan. Yeah, shout out whatever.
Nice.
ESPN 93.5 is Austin Berkland. We both know him. We've interned there. He's a very outspoken Cubs guy on Twitter, and he I think sometimes really puts it out there that he what he wants the Cubs to do, and I think that the one thing that I agree with him on is if there's one player I want to keep on that roster, it's KB.
Yeah,
because as good as Javi and Contreras and all of them are, if you have to select one. I mean, guy's already won an MVP. The guy's, consistently a top 5, top 6 third baseman. He's got the flexibility.
It makes sense, though, because you're fine if you trade him and then he leaves that team for a different team, too. I know. Which means he was going to leave the entire time anyway.
I know, but I really feel like he likes the Cubs. I really feel like he likes the Cubs.
Yeah, that grievance really says that he loves the Cubs.
I know. Well, that's his agent's also Scott Boras. And Scott Boras is just a pain in the fans every day. But, God, I hope they don't trade Chris Bryant. And then in the NFL, things tightened up this week. More teams clinched their spot. The Saints already clinched their spot, winning their division last week. But then this week, the Ravens are officially in. The Chiefs are officially in.
I believe so.
And then things got interesting in the wild card race because Seattle loses to the Rams, which tightens up the Rams having a shot. Kind of hurts the Bears' case because you kind of needed the Rams to bottom out, and then you hoped that the Vikings would loosen up because whoever's going to be in the NFC wild card, it's going to be from the West or the Central, or the West or the North, because the Bears are in the hunt and the Vikings are right there. The Seahawks are currently the 5 seed, and then the Rams are right there. And then the rest of the team, and then we know the NFC East is what it is. The NFC East is going to to be on display tonight on Monday Night Football, and you'll see Eagles, Giants, and you'll just be like, who wants to win this division? Because the Cowboys at 6 and 7 right now are the 4 seed in the playoffs. I don't think change the playoff record or change the playoff format at all because I think it's right the way that it is, but it's still
really, because I was just going to say the NFL playoff bracketing, if you will, is the most confusing in sports.
Why?
I think because look at how
two teams get a bye and then
but it's just weird. I think the NBA's makes the most sense. Just straight record, straight seeding, 1 to 8. I think that makes the most sense, regardless of division or whatever.
I don't know. I like the emphasis on division still. I like the idea of win who is who you see all the time,
right,
and what you know.
Because in the NBA, you play the people in your conference either 3 or 4 times a year, but the NFL, you might not even see somebody in your conference or whatever. So the division means so much more in the NFL than it does in, say, the NBA.
But then you have teams like the Cowboys in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know how often that happens, though.
That happened a few years ago when the Cardinals were 10 and 6 and they were out.
Fair.
And same thing, an 8 and 8 team from the East got in.
I was thinking of, I don't remember if it was I think it was an 8 and 8 Seahawks team. That same playoffs was the Marshawn Lynch beast mode run. Was when the Seahawks upset the Saints because they hosted them in Seattle, and even though they were a 500 or maybe sub 500 team, the way that the NFL works is that I think the NFL is so tight though that any team can win any game, and I don't know. I like the format because, like you said, it focuses on division. But we've already spent too much time on national than I wanted to because we got a lot to get to today, and we're going to talk about Illini sports today in this first segment. And the most prevalent news right now in Illini sports is Illinois football going to the Red Box Bowl in Santa Clara, California. On December 30th, they will play Cal, the Golden Bears, essentially a home game for them, with Illinois having to travel 2 time zones west, and them being, just down the road at Berkeley. But I think it's a fun bowl. I think it's a beatable opponent, and it's nationally broadcast on Fox, unlike a lot of the bowls which had to take the backseat to Fox Sports 1. This one, you get to see it, local channel. And I'm happy about it. I think that if you have any grievances or anything against this bowl, you need to just remove the idea that this team could have been 7 and 5, and then you keep playing the what if game. This team could have been 9 and 3 or whatever. Yeah. But in reality, this is the team that you got, and you're going bowling for the first time in a long time, first time under Lovie Smith era. And as I said, you got a beatable opponent, and it's just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. It's bowl season, and your team's in it.
Yeah, no, it's a good bowl. The weather's nice. It's good for the kids. I think I saw a tweet talking about the prize bag that the athletes get. And it's just cool to see these guys that you've known work so hard for these past couple of years under this coach finally pay off in some big wins against Michigan State and Wisconsin, and they're finally kind of being able to go that extra 2-3 weeks in December and be able to kind of really play for maybe pride or anything that they're really out there playing for.
Yeah, we'll get to this later, but as we look back at Illinois sports throughout this decade, if you can't find it in you to get excited about a bowl game anymore, then you've been off the bandwagon because when you're an Illini sports fan, you kind of got to just buy in, and you got to accept that the teams that you see are what there's some this parity that it is Illinois, that you feel like at the best you're on the cusp of greatness, and there's plenty of times that you feel like it's been at its worst. I mean, this exact year, this bowl eligible year, we were talking about firing the head coach and having no idea where the program was going, and being extremely disappointed in what's going on, and then how quickly a 4-game win streak fixed all of that, and now it's just about enjoying where you're at, and just getting to see Illinois and getting to be a team that went to a bowl game, because there's plenty of teams that would like to be in this position. There's plenty of teams that had more disappointing seasons than this, because the bad taste in your mouth that you get from a Northwestern game should not not cloud how fun it was to watch that Michigan State game and know that a bowl game was on the line, and see a team that had the effort and a lot of those impact players coming back, and will be back around this time next year, when hopefully we're talking about a more serious bowl, and it's a tide that continues to build, because that's the mental process you have to go through when you watch a team that's been so mediocre for so long now finally reach its goal for the season, which was make it to a bowl game.
It's goal in the Lovie Smith tenure, even though this has been your goal since 2015, 2016. So you're finally here. This was the year you were supposed to make that jump, and you did it. So, and now you get to hit that recruiting trail again.
Yeah,
you're saying we're a bowl team. We have this new facility. Let's let it rip.
Yeah. It affects recruiting mightily to be able to say to your recruits, I don't know if they bring recruits to bowl games, but regardless, to have a recruit be able, that's sort of on the fence, can spend his winter break just watching the teams that have offered him and see them on bowl games, rather than try to hear from a coach that hasn't accomplished anything yet. Our program has something building. Now there's broadcast evidence that they have something building, and let's hope they come out strong against Cal, because a win there, a 7-6 season, you get to say, the first winning season in a long time. You get to really stamp something on it, and that's why I say Cal's a beatable opponent. I don't know how, I haven't done a lot of my research on Cal just yet, but it can happen. We've seen Illinois beat ranked opponents. We've seen Illinois beat opponents on the road. Like, if you're going to call this a home game for Cal, we've seen them with Michigan State. So plenty, anything can happen, and it's exciting. I
do want to say I read that this bowl is ranked by one of the athletic writers. They ranked it 27th out of 35, and you're just
well, it's on the. I think it's the low end of the totem pole for Big Ten bowls. Yeah. But even then,
you'll take it.
Yeah, you got to take it. You got to take it. If you start reading into it, you can find ways to be well, this doesn't even who cares?
I was scrolling. I was still scrolling, and then I got into the late teens, and I was like, come on. Then I got into the 20s. I was like, come on.
There it was.
And then it was down there in the late 20s. That one hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're here, and that's what's important.
Another thing that hurt a little bit was watching Illinois basketball this weekend, because
really hurt.
Man,
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Illinois basketball loses to Maryland 81-79 after leading the entire game. Maryland. When Maryland took the lead,
Maryland led it 3-2.
Right. I was going to say, when Maryland took the lead again, it was their first lead since 3-2. First half is, I think first half is the ceiling. I think second half is what keeps you out of March as a team.
Yeah.
That was
not even the entire second, the last 10 minutes of the second half. It's the last quarter, if you will.
Well, but even then, I think that it went from a 15-point Illinois lead at halftime to just kind of immediately in the second half, an 8-7 point lead.
Yeah.
It was never able to keep at bay. It was kind of you let them right back in, and then
you were trading with them though,
sure.
Which you'll take, because that's still the number 3 team for a reason.
Sure.
As long as you can build the lead and keep it. Obviously they didn't at the end, but if you could keep them at 8 or 7, then you're feeling fine about that.
Yeah.
I think it just sucks because you saw how good offensively they can be when you said they're in their ceiling in the first half, and then they come out and score 19 points, and then they're not good defensively in the second half, and then they don't make the right plays down the stretch. So that whole second half, it was kind of reminiscent of the Arizona second half, where it's just you can't, nothing that they were trying was working. And it just sucks because then you look back at the first 2 games of this 3-game stretch that everybody's talking about, and they lose both those games by 1 point. And there's just it just seems like this team cannot finish these teams, when it really matters. And, it's just kind of disappointing start to the season, I think.
And that's why when I said it, I didn't want to phrase it as second half is the floor, because I think the floor is the first 10 minutes against Miami.
Yeah.
That was just
Yes.
gutless
awful.
basketball.
Yeah.
This wasn't necessarily the floor. It's still Maryland, and they still the reason that 18, 19 different NBA teams had scouts there is because Maryland's full of scouts, and then obviously people know that Io's looking towards the NBA, and Kofi's been getting national recognition. So of course NBA scouts are going to want to check out that matchup, especially in Maryland, close to that East Coast, sort of all the hub of action that's happening. Very easy trip for those scouts to make. And I'm glad that you brought up a lot of the things that the players did wrong in the second half, because something that also went wrong and something that I'd like to talk to you guys about was I thought there were very questionable coaching decisions
Yep.
at the very end of the game.
That's why I was surprised to hear you say players first with that.
Well, because Brendyn brought it up, but I had it as a bullet point down here as something that I really wanted to touch on because, I mean, let's just get right down into it. Kofi doesn't play for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
6.
The last 6 minutes, you're right.
Yeah.
Dovi doesn't touch the floor for the last 6
Doesn't
minutes.
even get up.
Then, on the possession with the game tied, Illinois chooses to ride, or with Illinois down 1.
Yes.
Illinois chooses to ride with Andres Feliz as the point guard.
No, wasn't it? Was it
Instead of
tied?
Ida Simmons. It was down 1 because he hit a free throw and then ended up being a 2-point
Oh, you're talking about this. Okay. Okay.
I'm talking about Andres
Okay.
Feliz on the very last full possession that Illinois got.
Are you talking about when they lost the ball and then they fouled?
Yeah.
I think it was tied.
It was tied.
Because the foul, they got 1 free throw, then they missed a second free throw.
Yeah.
Was it not 81-79? Is my score wrong?
No, I'm pretty sure it was tied.
All right,
That's
tie
the
game.
point.
It's
Yeah,
less.
no,
it's
I'm
less-
almost
Because
it's the last-
you could have dribbled it out and taken the last shot.
It's the last full possession.
Right.
Yes.
I kind of saw this earlier in the game that Andres was asking for the ball out of Io's hands, like when Io would sort of just slowly bring the ball up a half court, which of course it's not always fun when Illinois slows things down because we know their offense really comes from high energy movement, just finding a shooter or getting to the rim and like just very simple fast break basketball. That's what Illinois excels at. And half court offense we've seen be stagnant at times. But you trust Andres with that shot. Andres then does exactly what Io would have done. He drives right, but then what bothers me, and this is something that doesn't happen if Io has the ball, is he puts it on the ground and kind of mishandles it. I think Io is an elite defender, uses his length really well, and really doesn't lose the ball when he's dribbling. Andres Feliz, as good as he had been driving that whole game and being able to get to the bucket, and we'd seen him be clutch in games like Grand Canyon past this year, you have to have the ball in Io's hands there. He's the reason that NBA scouts are watching him for a reason.
I agree.
They're not there for Andres Feliz. And I've heard so many people complain about the referees blowing that call. I mean, I think it's a foul. I thought it was late. The blow was late, but it was a foul.
I think there were fouls on both sides, but they only called the one on Illinois.
Fair.
But I mean, like that happens. Like I'm not going to sit here and say it's the ref's fault that Illinois blew a however many point lead from the second half.
And then somebody tried to correct me when I tweeted this. Is there no advancing the ball up to half court in college basketball? I'm pretty sure if you take a 20-second timeout, it's still you advance the ball to half court. Correct?
No, you have to get across half court.
Yeah, you have to get across and call
All right,
timeout.
all right. Then that makes sense. But calling the timeout in between
Free throws.
free throws
agree with
was
that. So
I didn't agree with
regardless.
that.
I think
Sealed
that
it.
was terrible.
Yeah.
Because then you just missed a free throw, and then you have to
and
go
then that's
all
it.
the way down the court.
There
I
is
know,
no
it didn't make
there is
sense.
no
So
ability
weird.
to take the timeout afterwards, and then
Right.
Regroup.
you got to hope for some Christian Laettner play, but you still have a shot at doing something like that.
Yeah.
Rather than rebound, find whoever we possibly can. I don't
Yeah.
even think Andres got the shot off in time.
No.
He didn't.
So it ends up not even mattering because you aren't able to get that shot off. And so I think it's not fire Brad Underwood. It's not even close. But I mean, there are a few times that I've really, really wondered about his coaching, and I've felt this since he started his job at Illinois, is that they've run the same half court offense for years, and I still think that it just doesn't get the job done.
I think that
And that's this game just adds to my thoughts of like, is Brad Underwood like is he the answer, but like
I think
where's the new creativity? Where's the new,
I agree with that, but I think he's a good coach in terms of getting players, to where they need to be. I think they responded really well after that Miami game, coming in the first half against Maryland, doing that.
Yeah.
I think that we've seen this team in stretches because of the defense they play, because of the transition offense they play, be really, really good and outmatch some of those teams in those aspects. What I think Underwood has to do is look at himself and be like, how do I make sure that in these clutch moments, in these times where you absolutely need a bucket, you can't just, run the same play.
Yeah.
That's 2 games in a row where they just did not run, they didn't do
have a
anything.
play.
Yeah, they didn't have
It
a
was
play
an
at all.
ISO.
It was ISO, score a bucket. And against these good college defenses, you can't do that. So I don't know. I think that he's a great coach. I think that, he's done a lot with this team. I think this team's ceiling is still very high. They've struggled in the beginning, but I think they're still a tournament team. I just think they have to, look at themselves and be like, how can we, in these moments that are going to be reminiscent of when you go to March, how are you going to be able, to make the best play possible, to whatever talent that you have, to put them in the best position possible to make those game-winning plays?
Yeah.
You don't make those game-winning plays, though, when you're arguably your best player, you're definitely best player this season, sits on the bench for the last 6 minutes.
Yeah.
To go back to that, like, Kofi not playing the last 6 minutes, why is he not, and the whole thing was he had 4 fouls. Why are you willing to ride with Georgie with 4 fouls and not Kofi with 4 fouls, especially when he has been your best player up to this point in the season?
And Kofi fouls less. If you look at
Honestly, yes.
season statistics,
Yeah.
you get the first few games, he picked up like 3 fouls, I think, in like the first 2 games. That's a small sample size. I'm thinking back to there's very few games that he's been in foul trouble,
Right.
which is something that Georgie struggled with all the time last year. But you couldn't afford to pull Georgie because your next man up was Aldonis De La Rosa, who was just he was cement bricks for feet, so he couldn't guard the pick and roll. And that was your issue with Kofi in sort of the Miami game. Georgie came in and answered, and then Kofi still saw the floor in random increments in that Miami game. Or were you that afraid of the pick and roll in the Maryland game when Karan was contained while Kofi was on the floor with them running the pick and roll? Because it was very confusing.
I think those are the only 2 things that you can that are excusable. Yes, foul trouble, but he cannot sit the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. Bring him in when it's 3 minutes left. Bring him in when it's 2 minutes left. If he fouls, he fouls. But you have to have your best players on the court in those situations. Yeah. And 2, maybe he can't guard the pick and roll, as well as Georgie could in the 5 spot. But you need to have your best people on the court. If Kofi's on the court, I think they win because
Agree.
I think they have more rebounding. Yeah, they struggled in rebounding, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. Coming down, and I think they just have more of a presence. I think
they get better shots because I think for that last 6 minutes, let's say we go with what Brendyn said and he comes in for the last 3. Kofi, his presence draws the defenders away from line. There were a lot of really toughly contested shots that Maryland was all over you. You couldn't find a halfway decent shot in a lot of those possessions. You had to try a lot of weird floaters, had to just desperately drive or just chuck from the 3. Kofi being down there draws more attention to down low and gives you more space to move and run what you want to run. And if they do float out towards the 3 line, you toss it down and chuck it into him, and you're getting a dunk and 2 points, and you win.
And even if because there was a lot of plays where they were trying to waste the clock and it came down all the way to the end of the shot clock. You feel more comfortable chucking up shots with Kofi there rebounding than you do with Georgie, just because Kofi's 7 foot, he's 300 pounds. So I think that Underwood has to keep looking at his decisions and be like, how do I make this team successful late in the second half? And I think that's the biggest thing between what this team is right now and what this team can be.
Yeah, I just want to echo Jake's point of just bothering people at the rim. I mean, Kofi didn't even have that many blocks in this game, but they were shooting poorly from the rim because he's just a presence you always got to be worried about. And so, couldn't agree more with you guys about how crucial it is to get him in there at the very end of the game. Kofi's got national attention. He wins Big Ten Freshman of the Week again for the 3rd time already. It's the first time that an Illinois player has won Big Ten Freshman of the Week 3 times in a season, and we are 5 weeks into the season.
Something like that.
It hasn't been long. He's won most. It's
not more than 5.
Kofi has won most of the Big Ten Freshman of the Weeks.
And he's won one Player of the Week.
Yeah, and one whole Player of the Week, and it's not even January yet.
Yeah, it's kind of. It's just kind of nerve-wracking because you kind of wanted him to be here at least next year, and if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's one of the top big men in the country. Yeah. And then you're looking at him going to the draft or at least testing out those waters.
Yeah. But at this point, you're getting Io back next year because he's stunk.
You think so?
Io has stunk.
I don't think he's been that bad, but also I don't think that he comes back for a 3rd year because the way that the NBA looks at players that go 4 years, they don't look at them as people that can possibly be stars.
But he's noticeably worse than he was last year. Where he left off last year. Yeah, he's still got the length and the defensive chops, but he's shooting he's got no offensive presence.
I think that I think his ability in transition and his defense and his length if he continues, showing what he can show, like he's still scoring 14 points a game. That's decent in Division I. I think that he still has a complete resume to go late in the first round or early in the second round. And I think when you look at players that go, 4 years and they're not on like national championship teams and they're not on consistently good teams, it's hard for them to get drafted. So I think that the way he's going to look at it is, I still have hype. Let me like try to at least go test the waters.
Now.
Yeah, I mean, I think just because of how the NBA looks at players that stay long in college.
Yep.
Maybe it's just he's been not at all what you wanted to me. I mean, you were expecting just so much more from him specifically, not even just this team.
I think the shooting percentage is really concerning because this is back-to-back games that we've seen him try 12 or more shots, and this game he hits 4. He ends up with 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. I don't know. Io isn't playing like an NBA talent right now. Kofi is, and so I think the big issue is that you kind of expected Kofi to be looked at as a huge big man that has NBA potential this year, and then sort of be in the Io DeSumo position where people are going to watch him as an NBA talent next year and see how he does. And then this year turns around that Io, apparently got the reports that he wasn't going to be in the top 20 of the draft, but maybe still in the first round, says I'm going to come back, try to be a lottery pick, and he's been anything but so far. As good as I think he has been, and as much as I still think this team, goes as far as he takes them, right now Kofi's been the clear best player of the two.
Yeah.
And he's been great.
I was right about DeMonte needing to start though.
Yeah. You look at how the game started. DeMonte Williams provided. He did the whole box score thing. He has 3 points, but he has 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, only 1 turnover.
He's everywhere.
Yeah, he's an elite rebounding guard.
Oh yeah.
Illinois next test is Wednesday at home against Michigan. I have friends that think that that's the Adam Miller game. I have friends that think that because he kept his recruiting open, even after showing the Illinois Wolf mask, the fact that he says Michigan is offered 2 days before he announces he's going to Illinois, and then immediately goes to Twitter to say that, I have friends, and I kind of agree with that take, that this game's for Adam Miller.
Yeah, I don't
which
know
is tough because this is a hot Michigan team coming playing an Illinois team looking for answers.
I don't think that's a bad take. I think that there's a reason that he said that, like that he didn't sign the letter of intent or whatever it's called. But I think that he still. I don't think Illinois has to win this game. I think that they have to be competitive, and they have to show that they can be in it, much like they were in the Maryland game. But because I think that he chose Illinois for a reason.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is a 50-50. Whoever wins gets Adam Miller.
I mean,
that'd be a wild way to decide.
But the thing is, I'm not saying that it's. I'm not.
I think it carries weight.
Yeah, I think
I'm not going to go as far as I think that I kind of I agree with this take to the point that I think it's whoever wins this game. But like, if you're a recruit and you're between Maryland and Illinois, and then you watch Maryland, Illinois,
I agree.
You then go, well, Maryland won that game. Like they've got like this more talented roster, and they've got the national media, and there's sort of just a staying power of. Here's the matchup that I watched. As much as I know the Illinois players that are signing up right now are signing up for the idea that this team right now is going to be sort of the last step to put Illinois back to its like powerful Big Ten reputation that it had in the mid 2000s, and that this team, although not there yet, is what's going to get them there, and they're the class that's going to get them there. It's going to be hard to say the players love Michigan. Juwan Howard very quickly made that program exactly what Michigan wanted it to be, and. I mean, I think there's a lot of weight on that game, more than just Adam Miller, because Illinois gets a game against Michigan. We saw what momentum and a win against a top 5 opponent could do for Illinois football this season.
Right, of course.
Same thing you go to with Illinois basketball, because you beat Michigan and then you've got a very easy, manageable non-conference schedule, and then a game against Missouri that should win. So
of course.
You also though play Michigan again in January.
I know, but a win right now would really feel like it would right the ship a little bit, because.
But I'm saying as far as Adam Miller goes.
Fair. I think and a win is a lot to ask for from against this really good the Michigan team. But if you don't win this Michigan game, you have this easy non-conference schedule that sort of feels like exactly what Illinois did with Hampton and Lindenwood before coming back and laying an egg against Miami, because it'd been forever since they'd seen real competition. So I don't know, a lot to watch.
Gonna have to come out of that at Michigan State, who's currently number 16.
Fun. And then, last but not least, Illinois volleyball crashes out of the NCAA tournament with a loss to Utah. Brendyn, our very own Daily Illini volleyball writer here. Just quick notes on the game and what you saw.
I think that it was one of the most closely matched games that they played all year. Every first 4 sets was decided only by 2 points. Jacqueline Quaid had an amazing game, her last game. Ashlyn Fleming put up, good numbers. So did Megan Cooney. But it just kind of came down to what it had always came down to in the year. And they went to the 5th set, and they let Utah kind of go on 2 runs. And the 5th set's only 15 points. So, you let somebody go on a run, it's kind of hard to come back. And, they fought, but they weren't able to come back. But, they made it to the tournament. They lost, 2 really good players from last year. They had a lot of freshmen. They had a lot of young girls, and they still made it back to the tournament. And I think this team is still going to be exciting next year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Illinois volleyball's best team on campus for a long stretch of time, and I still think that holds true. I mean, it was no joke to make the NCAA tournament, and you go out tough loss to Utah in Utah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they're 17. They're ranked number 17. They were 50 miles from their campus. Yeah, it was a home game for them.
They were familiar with just not having to adjust or travel at all, and they're a strong team looking to and everybody's excited about the NCAA tournament. So tempo running high and whatnot. So that's Illinois sports today. With it being December 9th, 2019, and with it being our last show of the entire decade. I wanted to take this moment to sort of look back on Illini sports in the 2010s, because how young and naive and unknowing of what was about to happen to us we were in 2010. The basketball team was going to the tournament. It was Dimitri McCamey and Mike Tisdale. It was some of the last. It was Gross. Not gross. It was John Gross. It was a fun time.
It was literally gross a little bit at the end.
Well, it was gross with Gross at the end of his tenure, but it felt almost like where we are now. Things were looking up. People were excited about the program. Ron Zook was taking Illinois to bowl games. Like I said, the basketball team. Illinois sports just had this feeling of, okay, we are where we need to be to get to the national sort of cutoff of if you're good or not. Bowl games and NCAA tournament appearances. And then I think Illinois sports embarked on its worst decade ever.
Yeah.
Illinois football, no Big Ten titles, a .374 winning percentage, 4 bowl games. Illinois basketball, no Big Ten titles, a .401 winning percentage, 3 tournament appearances.
This is 2010 to now.
Yes.
Okay.
Illinois volleyball, no Big Ten titles, 8 tournament appearances. Illinois volleyball had a nice decade. But I was still surprised, though, with no Big Ten titles. Multiple times coming runner-up, but never able to hang a banner. I mean, those are just some of the notable programs and people that we talk about right now. I had on here too. I had on here too. Illinois golf, plenty of Big Ten titles, a dominant stretch for them.
And what, like 5?
And more.
In the decade?
No, I covered them last year. I think they won 9 out of the 10 years in the decade. They won the Big Ten title.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, they're so good.
That's more than I thought.
They're so good.
Illinois golf is relentless. I can't believe
last year being the year that they didn't, right? Or was it the year?
No,
before?
they won last year.
So was the year
I think it was. Yeah.
They were conference champions 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015, 2013, 2012, 2011, and 2010. Every year except 2014.
2014.
That's crazy.
They appeared in the NCAA championship appearances every year of those years, including 2014. And they went to NCAA match play in 2011, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. They had 2 individual champions this decade, in Scott Langley and Thomas Peters, 2010 and 2012, and they were the runner-up in national runner-up in 2013.
And I mean, how many guys have they sent pro from that? I mean, Peters, obviously.
Peters, I know.
Hardy,
Stricker was before this.
Right, obviously. DJ Funk. And
Nick Hardy.
I said Hardy. And then obviously Peters.
Does Luke Guthrie play nationally still?
I'm sure he's on the Wub.com tour.
Yeah, I'm. That's one thing with golf is I'm not sure who's where, and
Their like minor league system is so weird.
Right. Yeah,
it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing to me. But yeah, Illinois golf had a dominant decade. I mean, I didn't have enough time to dive in on everything. I mean, Illinois baseball goes to a few tournament appearances and challenges for the Big Ten. They had a good decade, but I wanted to sort of talk to you guys of what some of your favorite moments were from this decade of Illinois sports, because when you spend an entire decade sort of on the lower end of the spectrum, the bright moments I feel like shine pretty strong. Yeah. So I'll go around the table. I'm curious.
We'll just
reminisce.
Well, I mean, I was at the Wisconsin game and being able to rush the field. I mean, I never you see that all the time. Like growing up, you're like, man, when I go to college, I hope that happens to me. Right. Didn't think it was gonna happen with this team. It happened. I was on the field. It was crazy. Probably one of my favorite experiences in college, period. So that was really cool, and just being able, because I wasn't a huge Illini fan before I came here. So being able to see how rough it was for the diehard fans, and then finally this year with that Wisconsin win, kind of turning the corner a little bit and being able to experience that was really nice.
Yeah.
I even for with that Wisconsin game, I've witnessed now 2 stormings without being able to partake. One being basketball last year, and now Wisconsin this year. And it's almost kind of satisfying in that way too, because the first one I was there because I was in Nathan's position, and so I was watching it as a member of the media. But the Wisconsin game, I was at Red Lion, and I had people visiting me, and even that was seeing that in there even was kind of a cool experience too, which was because looking at the TV and looking around you is still it was very cool. It was something I'll remember for a long time for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I think those 2 obviously rank really high for us, being that it's in our college experience and that they are some of the biggest upsets that happen. I would agree on both of those. I was tailgating when Illinois beat Wisconsin, and I feel like no matter where you were, the next 15, 20 minutes, you were just looking around, finding somebody to high five, trying to find somebody that would just to give them a hug and be like, I can't believe we just did this. Crazy. And it was a we. It was an aspect of, you
get caught up.
There was no more that the football team, and if you go to the football games, whatever, no, that was a we did this moment. But I think maybe the best moment of the decade was in February 2013 when Tyler Griffey puts up a buzzer-beating layup to beat number 1 Indiana in at the time Assembly Hall State Farm Center. Everyone on Indiana is guarding the perimeter and expecting Illinois to do this and that, and Griffey just rolls and realizes he's got a wide open lane and just claps and screams and gets the ball, and immediately, with no time at all, just puts it up, and it rolls around long enough for the buzzer to go off before it goes in, and it was just you could see the reaction right after. He just goes up and just looks around, and he's like,
"What did I just do?
We just did it." And then just students and just everyone. I mean, that was a number 1 Indiana team with Yogi Ferrell when they had the hype and just that team, that was Watford for the win, Indiana, whatnot. That was just a crazy good team that and Illinois was in its sort of fun stage of we went to the tournament last year, but we're not really sure where we're at now, and just be able to do that. I think that's the biggest that's the thing though, is the Michigan State game and Wisconsin game are sticking out in my mind though, because they are when I was look at this, oh my gosh.
Right. So in that kind of vein, it didn't turn out the way you wanted to, but volleyball last year, being in the Final Four and being able to watch that on ESPN and being hey, I know these people, I've seen them, I've talked to them, and so even that was kind of, that sticks out to me too, is I was here for that moment too. It would have been cool if they'd been able to finish it, obviously, but alas.
Yeah, but such is the life of an Illinois sports fan. You take what you are given.
Yep.
So with that all in mind, and with a decade of mediocrity, and honestly,
I'd actually like to point one more out.
You want to point one more out?
Isaiah Martinez.
Yeah.
I'd like to point that out too, because that was just straight. We talk about golf, that was dominance. Wire to wire, he was the best college wrestler right now, is going to be in the Olympics, right? I think he's going to be there next year.
Yeah.
So he's been training the last 2 years for the Olympics this upcoming summer, and we're going to see it again. It's probably going to be even more incredible.
Yeah, I remember
crazy.
That was
that's wild.
It was an assignment I had early on in my journalism classes, sort of going through them, and it was to cover an event, and I picked the wrestling meet because it's just what worked with my schedule, and it's not that easy to go and actually cover and get quotes for a football or basketball game when you're just in JUR 210, like you don't have any real credential line. So. And see, Isaiah Martinez live is wild because it is very fast. All of a sudden, the points are just rising, and even being like a novice wrestler watcher, not really knowing how much a double fault or what everything means, but you're just like, oh, he's got 20 points now. Like this is going like he's just going off on this guy. And
even like
it's really impressive.
Yeah, even like talking to him, like I covered the wrestling team, and last year he was a volunteer coach, and like I got to talk to him, and just like how much he actually thinks about like what's going on, like how much he actually cares about it. And like I had this quote from him. I just asked him a simple question, and he went on for like 3-4 minutes about it. It was just so nice to see, and how much he actually cared about Illinois sports. Like he has a tattoo, the eye like on his ankle. It's just like how much like he really embodied, what being an Illini is.
Yeah. Jake, I'm glad you mentioned that because they're golf and baseball and track and field and cross country, and they're really these sports that we don't talk a lot about on our show and deserve more time being talked about because these are still student athletes that sacrifice so much of their time and effort to doing something for the school and keeping Illinois in good standing in the Big Ten and all the things that go along with being a student athlete because it really is hard, and I'm glad that you pointed out something that I sort of glossed over and forgot, and this goes for all the sports that we just don't spend enough time talking about on here. But as I was trying to get to earlier, but Jake, I'm glad you interrupt me, was that we've got a whole new decade in 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and I want to hear sort of just like what we're thinking because as crazy it was to say Ron Zook being the head coach of the football team so long ago, and Bruce Weber started a decade as the head coach for basketball, Gross quickly afterwards, and then we know the rest, Underwood now. This is obviously going to be a freezing cold take sort of segment because who knows what happens and how things change. But for what we know right now, so we can look back and laugh at when 2030 comes around, Illinois football, what do you guys think happens? What changes? Where do you see the trajectory of this team? And just realistically, I mean, obviously we're talking about a whole new decade here, but in reality, you can only really look at about 3 years down the road at absolute most.
Right.
But Illinois football, head coach, just the coordinators, just the team as a whole, how the Big Ten works, all of that.
I think Lovey's here for a while. I don't think he'll finish out the next decade because it'd be 14, 15 years. But I think he's here for a good part of this next decade. I think that there's 1 year where they're really, really good and they're competing. And then it just, doesn't work out. Whether I mean, it's hard to say it doesn't work out because there's only, 4 teams that compete for a national championship.
As of right now.
But I think Jason Whitman said something about like competing in the New Year's Day games or whatever, those 6 games. I think that they come close to that. Hopefully they get in there, but I'm not going to say that they're out there competing in, national championships in the next 5 years.
Sure.
I think, I don't think they're going to be lifting any, actual like college football playoff trophies in the next 4 years, but I think a New Year's 6 is attainable in the next 4 years. I think you'll be right there. I think this year showed you a lot of what this team can be. I agree. I don't think Lovey is here for another 10 years. That's crazy. That's a long time to be in football, especially considering like his NFL career too.
Yeah.
Like that's a long time. But you have to feel good because it starts with this year where you get that signature win over Wisconsin. Now you're going to a bowl game and you can recruit better, and you had already been doing a decent job of recruiting despite, the results on the field, and now you can take a little bit more of that resume and say, hey, look what we can do. It'd be even better if we had you here for this or you here for this, and so that makes things easier there. I think you feel pretty good. Like if I'm a freshman at this school right now, I feel pretty good about my chances of seeing like a high-end bowl game by my senior year.
Yeah. I would agree with you guys. I think that Lovey is either gone by the end of this current extension, which I think has 3 more years after this year, 2 more years after this year.
2 after this.
Or I think he is the primary head coach for most of the decade. Because of Whitman's ability to sit and watch and say I see the progress and you heard how relieved Whitman was and Lovey were after this year when you saw the progress, being that this offseason they gave Lovey Smith the extension, and just his ability to buy into the coaches that he has now, make it so that Lovey has brought in the recruits that were supposed to sort of come into play this year, and now all of a sudden next year you get just an absolute haul of players that you thought you were getting this year on top of the recruits that Lovey's been able to bring in. And sort of also give this take about buying in for something going forward. I think he eventually has to do a defensive coordinator, as much as he was asked about it recently, and he says, it's working right now, why change it? I think that at some point, even if you bring in a defensive coordinator just to focus on the one area that you aren't, really getting things done.
Lovey is through 2022. So 2022, if you get it in January, that would be the 22-23 season.
So 3 more years, right? Because it would be 2022, and this is technically 2019, so we get 20, 21, and 22.
Yes.
I think that in those 3 years, you got to see even more progress. You got to see sort of Outback Bowl type contention.
You have to keep climbing that ladder.
Because even if there's one season of digression, there's time to bounce back in the next year, and something that's just football. Sometimes you look at Texas this year was supposed to be a competitor, and they ended up, I think, 6-6, 7-5. That's years like that will happen. You got to keep believing in your program, and I think that's something that we see out of Lovey and the football team. Illinois basketball. I'll start with this one because I think this one's harder to determine. Because my question is, do we know anything about Illinois basketball? Because I'm looking at our final record predictions right here.
For this year?
From this year. Jake's got him 23-8.
Yeah,
I got him 22-9.
That.
Brendyn's got 21-10. Alex got 20-11. It's still possible, but all of a sudden there's you drop a Miami game that we sort of counted as a win, or at least expected to win. I think we underestimated Arizona, but also we kind of read that as a win. We knew we were probably going to lose to Maryland that game, so that doesn't really change a lot with our final records, but. Illinois' got a really tough Big Ten basketball season coming up. The Big Ten is very, very good. 5 teams ranked right now. So I just don't. You're seeing the things start to fall in place, and this was supposed to be the year that you really started to see things fall in place. And as we saw in that first half of the Maryland game, you just haven't done. Illinois basketball hasn't played a complete game yet, unless it's against a Division II opponent or Hampton or somebody like that. It hasn't been a full real basketball game from A to B yet, and so that's something that you're hoping to see, because the best teams and the teams that go to the tournament, the teams that compete for Big Ten championships and whatnot, are teams that can do that. I think the recruiting is still very much there. I think that getting some guys from Chicago, all of a sudden the Morgan Park connection of Adam Miller coming after Sumo has come. And maybe build a reputation at that school, which consistently pumps out really, really great basketball recruits. And then also those guys that play AAU with guys that play at Simeon and Whitney Young and other prolific college basketball or high school basketball schools in the state of Illinois that Chicagoland area always produces recruits. St. Louis, we've seen some success there, and also abilities to get international students that have really shined. I mean, you haven't seen a ton out of like Bosmans Verdonk yet. But of the other 3 international students, Andres Feliz, Kofi Coburn, and Georgie Bishanasvili, you are getting far and away more than you expected when they first showed up. So that ability to find international players is something that not a lot of programs really excel at. Because, there's the big-time schools that can just focus on the, ESPN Top 100 or whatever, and not really have to sort of find any diamonds in the rough. And then, occasionally when they do, it's because they're on the ESPN Top 100.
Well, even you found a little connection to New York even now through like Brendyn Jones and Andre Curbelo too.
Yep.
Like you established that, and even like a little bit in Florida with Trent Frazier, and you found Andres Feliz in Florida.
Yeah.
So you have a couple different threads to follow.
Yeah. For Illinois basketball, it's hard to predict, obviously, going a decade forward. Yeah. But as of right now, I feel pretty good that Illinois can be a top tier, not top tier. If you break the Big Ten into 2 regions, upper region and lower region, I think they can consistently be the upper region of the Big Ten, finish sort of in that 7-4 range on any given year, and then put the pieces together and the right season comes around, you can compete and be the best, second best, or third best team in the Big Ten. And that's really what I see going forward. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same thing. I expect them this year, I expect them to get better. And then, for the foreseeable, rest of this next decade, I expect them to be a upper level, as you said, Big Ten team. I think there's going to be a couple years where they're competing for that number one spot and where they, go deep in the Big Ten tournament. And then I expect, in reality, of these next 10 years, 6 tournament appearances. Like, I expect them to be there semi-often. And if they're not there, it's like because they've had, 2-3 bad years in a row where it's like maybe their recruits didn't pan out or something like that, or other teams in the Big Ten are just really, really good. But I expect them to put together 2 runs that are like multiple tournament appearances in a row, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I still think even this year this team has that tournament team talent, and it's still early. You could still make up ground there, but you have to feel good about the talent that's coming in. Like this next year, especially, like, look at what you have where your recruiting class currently stands. This is assuming Adam Miller stays with the Illini and ends up making a hard commitment to the Illini. But like that's a really good sign. That's a really strong start to the decade.
Yeah.
Like 2020, you're coming in here with Andre Curbelo and Adam Miller, and that doesn't even count like Coleman Hawkins, who's really long and really athletic, and then you're gonna have like Trent Frazier in his 4th year, and Alan Griffin in his 3rd, and Brendyn Jones, and yada yada yada, so on and so forth. But I mean, this team already starting off next year has a really strong foundation, and if it works out the way that you think it is, then I think even 6 tournament appearances in the decade, I think even that, like, I think you could even exceed that.
Yeah. I would put my expectations at 6 too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, of 10 years, the way that I see Illinois trending and the way that I think that the sort of culture change that Underwood brought in, it is one of those programs that should consistently be, in that upper echelon of the Big Ten. And as we've seen, upper echelon of the Big Ten is usually good enough to get yourself to the tournament because Big Ten has sent 7 teams to the tournament. Big Ten has sent 3 teams to the tournament. It's all variance on how college basketball actually plays out and the selection and whatnot. But something I also thought that was fun to look forward to is Illinois, in this next decade might be adding things. The Illinois sports scene might be expanding. Especially, hockey is the big one. There has been talks, very serious, possible money moving to build a stadium, to build a ice arena in Champaign area for the hockey team to use. The current one that they have right now wouldn't, I don't think, unless major renovations are done, be able to house NCAA regulation level of hockey. But they're looking to add to that, and of course, I don't know if esports really ever becomes like a recognized college sport or something along those lines. And the world is weird, and we don't really know. And as much as I don't think it's a sport, although I think there's a market for it, I doubt it gets recognized. But I don't know. It's 10 years down the road. If you would have told me in 2010 that Lovie Smith would coach Illinois, I'd be like, it's crazy. And here we are. Fair. And here we are. And in one season, try to tell me that Lovie Smith should be fired, and then us saying that his job is as safe as it's ever been. So I mean that's exciting stuff. I expect the golf team to still dominate.
Yeah.
I expect the volleyball team to still remain as good as they have been with the pedigree that they've
extremely relevant.
amassed.
Wrestling is going to be really good in 2 years.
Why? What makes you say that?
Last year they had so many good young guys, and this year they brought in more recruits. And they're young guys, like they have 2 twins, the Bronagles. They're competing. They're sophomores, and they're really good. Justin Cardani is really good. He's starting. They just won against Missouri. I think they're going to compete this year, and then next year and the year following, they're going to be kind of back into that what you expect Illinois wrestling to be.
Okay.
But yeah, that's just my
I'll take your word for it, and you know more about the wrestling team than I do. So, you guys know the holiday season is coming up. And so
It is?
It is. It's time to get out there and buy your gifts or make those lists or whatever you have to do. So I'm gonna ask you guys for a wish list. You have an Illinois Christmas or whatever holiday you support wish list. 2 or 3 things that you're asking for from this holiday season for Illinois sports as a whole. Because there's plenty that we can ask for other than just wins, but I mean wins work too.
Yeah, I think I want this bowl game win. I still want. Man, I want the Man, this is so basic, but I obviously want the basketball team to win a tournament. Or not win the tournament, be in the tournament. I mean, that'd be great, but I don't know. Come back to me. I'll get a third one.
Bowl one's easy. I want bragging rights back, and I want a commitment from Adam Miller, like a hard commitment. I want a signature.
Yeah. I think
Brendyn, it's back to you.
No. Me. I would say
ahead.
me and your lists are pretty much identical. I'm getting a little eager and saying I want this Michigan win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a wish list. I can ask for whatever I want. But yeah, I want a Michigan win. I want to do well in my finals. I have some finals I need to do pretty well.
Oh, this could be outside of sports?
No, but I'm looking at my
You prefaced it with Illinois.
I'm looking at my
sports.
schedule right now, and it reminded me, like, oh yeah, like I got a busy week ahead of me and a stressful time, but I want to do well in my finals. I'll stick to sports. I want the bowl game win. I want the bragging rights game. I have family in Missouri, so it's always a fun game for bragging rights game of there's some heads that clash. And I'd also like to see Illinois football's recruiting trail pick up a little bit because it's getting to that point that you can start to look ahead and okay, what's this team bringing back? What's this team adding? And I talked about already the Marquise Beeson and all the receivers that got injured and the Luke Ford whole situation. You have a ton of people that you're getting this coming season that you thought you were getting this season on top of recruits that you're hopefully getting and the recruiting trail picking up. So I'd like to see that Illinois recruiting class start to shape out a little bit, and hopefully some of the talks and the recruiting stuff that Lovie Smith and the staff are doing right now, and the time that they have between their last game, the bowl game, and then furthermore from the bowl game all the way to signing day and whatnot, that they can sort of just start to build that. You take that momentum, put it into numbers, and see this recruiting class sort of round out. So yeah,
I got a last one. Yeah, I want Kofi to win Big Ten Freshman Player of the Year. I think that he's already on track.
Yeah.
He just has to continue that. And I know that'll be harder as the Big Ten stretch rolls around.
Yeah.
We've seen him not be bad, but obviously take a step back from when you're playing, Lindenwood and Hampton. But I think it's still very doable, especially the fact that they lost 2 games this past week, but he still won Freshman of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be great for him if he wants to go test the draft market or if he wants to come back. I think that's just a good base to build off of for the future for the Illini.
Yeah. Real quick, all Illinois basketball games before our next show, as fast as you can. Michigan on Wednesday. Win or loss?
Loss.
Can't do this to me, man.
Old Dominion.
Win.
Win, yeah.
Mizzou.
Win.
North Carolina A&T.
Win.
At Michigan State.
Loss.
Yeah, loss.
Home against Purdue.
Win.
Win.
I'm gonna call that a win.
At Wisconsin. I hate that game.
At Wisconsin.
At Wisconsin.
Win. Get it
Win.
to me.
I think that's where they start getting hot.
Home against Rutgers.
Win.
Win.
Home against Northwestern.
Win.
Win.
Then at Purdue.
Win.
Win.
I think the at Purdue's a loss. I think the at Purdue's a loss, and I think at Wisconsin.
I think right after that Michigan State game, I think that's where you get hot.
And that stretch is Purdue, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Northwestern, and Purdue. And then I think and then at Michigan is the last game right before we get started again. We'll see.
So
We'll see because
Big
Michigan's 5 right now, but I think teams can sort of figure them out, and especially when they start playing Big Ten defenses week in and week out.
Just watch the replay of the Louisville game against them. Louisville annihilated them, picked them apart, emasculated them.
Yeah. And we know that Brad Underwood's defense, it hasn't been amazing so far, but we know that it can get stops and can really set up something. So I think there's a legit chance that we look at an Illinois team that's receiving votes when we get back. That's my wish list. To be receiving votes when we do our first Illini drive in January. But yeah, that's going to do it for us. Not just for today or this week or this month, but this whole year, a whole decade. Thank you guys very much for watching and sticking with us. Hopefully we're coming to you through the airwaves on WPGU when this comes back. But for myself, for our producer Alex, for Jake, for Brendyn, thank you very much for listening. This has been Illini Drive. And yeah, Alex, hit the music.